world, it's Keely and I'm back for another video. This is going to be my Friday reads video for Friday the 13th of June, which is pretty dope. I have stacks of books in front of me because I have books that I finished this past week to tell you about, books that I'm currently reading, and then the books that are on my radar to pick up next. Let's start with the books that I was talking about for last week. What I decided to do is I'm going to start tracking the books that I talk about every Friday and then cross off as I get through them so that I can, at the next Friday reads, tell you kind of which ones I'm actually reading and which ones I haven't picked up and that kind of stuff. We will start with actually a DNF from this past week and one that I'm going to get rid of, and that is one that I literally just bought, but this one is The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion. I really wanted to be able to read this one, but I didn't entirely know what it was about when I bought it. I read that it, like, on the back it says that she talks about grief and exploring marriage and stuff, and then I started reading it and realized that it's one of my worst fears ever come true, and that's that her husband died of a heart attack. And heart disease runs in my family, heart disease runs in my husband's family. People in both of our families have died from heart failure and heart disease, and my dad currently has congestive heart failure. And so one of my biggest fears ever is that something will happen to my husband because of heart problems, and this one is just absolutely not going to be for me. I picked it up the day that I bought it and I read the first couple chapters, and then I have not wanted to pick it up since then. No, this one's just not going to be for me, and that's fine, and I'm just going to donate that one. But I did finish some really good ones this past week. So I read Dear Mothman by Robin Gow, which was incredible, super duper emotional. Absolutely love this one. This one is a middle grade about a little boy who is trans, whose best friend, who was also trans, dies in a car accident, and they were preparing to have a science fair project, and the best friend that died wanted to research cryptids and try to prove that Mothman was real, but the surviving little boy didn't want to do that until his friend died, and then now he decides, I want to see if Mothman is real and make that be my science fair project, and that's going to be how I'm processing the grief of losing my best friend. And oh my god, this was the most emotional, beautiful book. I loved it so much. It's made up of basically a bunch of letters. The little boy writes to Mothman in a journal and leaves the journal outside at night so that Mothman can read the journal entries, and I love this one so much. I cannot recommend this one enough. Then another one that I had a lot of fun with was book 8 in the Enola Holmes series by Nancy Springer. This is Enola Holmes and the Elegant Escapade. Just absolutely love this series. It's one of my favorites of all time. It's just super duper fun, middle grade. Enola is Sherlock's little sister, and she decides that she wants to be kind of her own version of an investigator, and she has different cases, and this one references cases from earlier in the series. The books are super fun. You probably could pick them up individually without having read like the series in order, but I think for the most amount of like good experience and context, you should read them in order. But this one was lovely, really enjoyed it. And I finished another middle grade. That one is The Wand Keepers, A Sky Full of Dragons by Tiffany McDaniel. Absolutely love this one. I really hope that she will continue on and write another one. That's what the vibe is. That's how the first one ended. This one just came out in the last couple of years, but this one is about a little girl who her parents gave her up and they put her in the bottom of a cauldron, and then a witch finds her in the bottom of the cauldron and raises her herself, and this little girl is learning all about herself and the different magical powers and how to be proud of who she is and trying to uncover who her parents are. And there's a lot of different mysteries and friendships, and it's super duper cute. Really loved this one. And then one that's nothing at all like those, but I did finish this one, is In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. This is Carmen's memoir that is told through the concept of a dream house and a lot of folklore and mythology. Well, not really mythology, but folklore. So each chapter or section is dream house as something, and it was incredible. I really enjoyed this one, but this one was way more emotional for me than I thought it would be. Carmen talks about primarily being a queer woman in a domestic violence relationship with a queer woman, and that's a huge part of the book in terms of it not being talked about, that queer people can experience domestic violence, that women can abuse women. And it was so deeply upsetting and emotional, but I freaking loved this one and highly recommend it. But just know going into it, it's incredibly emotional and violent. And then the other one that I finished this week, again, completely different from that, was the third book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series by Matt Dinniman. This one was the Dungeon Anarchist Cookbook. Absolutely loving this series so much. This one is, like I said, the third book, and if you know nothing about Carl, Carl is a fantasy series that he is outside one day with his girlfriend's cat, or I think it's its ex-girlfriend at that point, and trying to like wrangle the cat when then every building around him collapses and every person that was in those buildings dies. The only survivors are people that were outside, and then this big announcement just comes through the atmosphere and says like, hey, so we were leasing you guys Earth and you suck and we're taking it back. And then the announcement says we're making a system of dungeons and you can go into the dungeon and start competing to survive. So Carl goes into the dungeon with the cat, and then each book is following Carl and the cat as they are trying to survive in the different floors of the dungeon. And it is incredible and so fun. I can't really tell you anything about book 3 because you'd have to have read the first 2 books, but they're just a lot of fun. So that one I finished. Then, of course, being me, I have started a handful of books. So the next middle grade that I started was Thornlight by Claire Legrand. This one is about 2 girls that are sisters. One is like super revered. People love her. She rides a unicorn and collects lightning bolts and does something for society that's wonderful. And then the other sister is, I think she's 12, and she is like a chimney sweep. And so far we've just been introduced to the 2 little girls, and that's it. I'm not even finished the first chapter yet. I just picked this up the other day. So I want to finish this one this week. This one rolled over from my May TBR, so I do want to finish this one. Then I started yesterday reading 2 more books. I started reading Frankenstein by Jeanette Winterson, and you can see I am almost 100 pages in so far. Really loving this one. This one is a collection of different characters throughout different points in history, and they are all like intertwined with the story of Frankenstein in different ways. So it starts off with Mary Shelley being at the villa with Lord Byron and Percy Shelley and Dr. Polidori, and they decide that they're going to write stories, and so you're introduced to Mary that way. And then the next chapter you're following someone called Rye, who is going to an AI kind of tech conference and learning about the different ways that AI is being used, particularly with sex bots for the first section. And it's so interesting so far. I'm really enjoying this one. And then the other one that I also started yesterday to read on my Kindle at night is the 4th book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. So I'm again about 100 pages into this one so far. This one is The Gate of the Feral Gods, and I just really enjoyed the 3rd one and wanted to continue on immediately to the 4th one. And the 4th one is, I think, even bigger than the 3rd one, or about the same size. And so far I'm really enjoying it, but I was talking to my husband this morning about, again, Matt Dinniman is such a great writer. His characters are so creative. I love the world building, but he still does that like very lazy writer thing of falling back on writing at the expense of groups of people in order to make a point or to make a joke. And you don't need that. We don't need that. And so it takes me out of it when that happens. Like, he is trying to describe how messed up this one group of characters is, and he describes them as being like, you know, I'm making my point about how messed up they are by comparing them to people that have birth defects. And it's just like, why? We don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. So continually he does this, and it's not every book, it's not every character, it's just those like little one-off. I'm like, why did you write that? Like, take that sentence out and you would have got the same point across. So I'm still having issues with that. These books are not perfect by any means, but they are really fun, besides that, I will be continuing on with this series. It's my husband's favorite series of all time, and he's very much enjoying as I'm reading to like these different parts so that he can experience it again for the first time with me as I'm getting there. So we'll be reading this one this week. If we look back at the books that I wrote down for last Friday reads, I wrote down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 books, and I finished 5 of them, and I am getting rid of 1 of them. So that's not bad. I actually am trying to stick to, these vibes that I get into, these challenges that I set myself. After I film and edit and upload this video, I will write down all of these books to get through. But I also want to get to a handful of books. So one of them I actually just bought. I'm obsessed with the Dish podcast, which is a British podcast from the store Waitrose. And there's I think he's a comedian or actor, and then a Michelin star chef, and they host the podcast, and they bring celebrities on and just talk to them about food. And the Michelin star chef asks them, like, what's your favorite types of food, or do you have like a specific thing that I can make you? And then she makes the food, and Waitrose's website posts the recipes. So I have like all these recipes I want to try, and it's just been absolutely lovely. It's very, very cozy watching this show. I will link it down below because they have started posting them on their YouTube, which is just lovely. I love watching them. I've listened to a couple in like podcast vibes, like listening through a podcast app, because the first couple seasons are not on YouTube, and there are ones that I wanted to listen to, but primarily I just watched the videos. But one of the ones I just watched is from Sandy Toksvig, and I freaking love Sandy. She was a co-host for British Bake Off for a little while. She took over hosting QI for Stephen Fry. She's written a crap ton of books, is a disability advocate, is just a really, really fascinating person, and I decided that I wanted to read her memoir. So that's why I got her memoir. It's called Between the Stops. I just think this is going to be so wonderful, and I do have her newest fiction book on my, I said that weird. I have her newest fiction book on my Kindle. I forget what it's called, but I will put the cover here. I heard her describing it. It's a story that she wanted to write for years, and it's about a lesbian couple that buy a house from an older woman, and when they move in, they realize that the older woman did not move out. She took the money and stayed, and there is now like squatters' rights, and it's supposed to be like a weird dark comedy. So I think that's going to be really fascinating, but I do want to read this one first and then move to her fiction book. And then I'm sitting here and I've been looking at my shelves and realized that I am really, really great at buying books on vacation and then not reading them. And so as we are gearing up to get ready for our next round of vacations throughout the year, my husband and I take a lot of tiny trips, and then we do like one or two like more substantial trips in terms of like we go to a cabin for a couple days. We're getting to that point where we're going to be, in the fall will be our next one, because every fall we go to New England, and it's just a place that we both want to live at some point. And so every fall we drive up to New England and we stay in an Airbnb, and we go hiking, and we go to local bookstores and do all the spooky things, and it's just wonderful. We also go to like a beach trip like one day. I'm not a ocean person, but we like going to the boardwalk and just walking on the boardwalk. I went through my app on my phone where I tag all of my books. I scan in all of my books, and I looked for books that I remember buying on vacation. And then as I was doing that, I realized just how many there are. I'm not going to be able to get to all of them, but these are the ones that I grabbed that I was like, okay, I can feasibly get through maybe a couple of these this next week. A couple of these I bought in New England. One I bought when we went to a different boardwalk. We went to like a beach town, and then one I just got when we went to Florida. So this is one I bought in New England last year. This is The World's Most Haunted House, The True Story of the Bridgeport Poltergeists on Lindley Street by William J. Hall. Whenever we go to New England, I love going to the various like spooky bookstores that are up there, and I love buying, if I can find, local authors that write about creepy New England stuff. And so that's why I grabbed this one. I have a stack of those kinds of books over on my bookshelf, and I have flipped through a lot of them, but this one I haven't yet, so I do want to read this one. Then this is one that's like a more traditionally published one. This one is Witchcraft, A History in 13 Trials by Marian Gibson. Again, bought this one when we were in New England. And the final one that I bought when we were in New England last year was this one, which is The Devil's Right Hand, The Tragic Story of the Colt Family Curse by M. William Phelps. And this one is about the legacy of death and destruction in the gun-making cult family in the 19th century. Apparently there was like a murder case involved that inspired an Edgar Allan Poe story, and it's just about like this cursed family dynasty. And I thought that that would be potentially interesting to read, so that's why I grabbed this one. Then the one that I purchased most recently, I've talked about a handful of times, is this one, Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. This one literally says only at Hudson, which is the bookstore in the Philadelphia airport. I bought this one on vacation and didn't read it, so I want to read that one. We're not going to Florida again till next year, but I still want to get that read. And then the final one is one that I got on vacation when we drove down to Rehoboth Beach in Delaware and stayed in an Airbnb for a couple days and went to a bookstore there. And this one is Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Miro. I did buy another book when we were down there, but I don't remember which one it was. Oh, I bought a couple books when we were there. And I read those books, but I hadn't read this one yet because this one is the biggest. It's England, 1882. In Victorian London, two children with mysterious powers are hunted by a figure of darkness, a man made of smoke. And I've heard very mixed things about this one. Either people just didn't vibe with it or they absolutely loved it. So I'm really hoping that I'm going to enjoy this one. Those are all the books that are on my radar for the next week. As always, I am very much a mood reader, so I'm going to try to get through any of these books by the end of the week, but I will probably pick up other ones as they pop into my brain. This is my plan for the week. So let me know what books you guys are reading this weekend into next week. Did you finish any this past week that you thought were great? And that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.